I'm here today to do the 2017 mid-year book freakout tag. I was tagged to do this video by Amy Poole, so thank you Amy for tagging me to do this video. I'm very excited. I'm sure that I will find people to tag and link them down below. I'm a little bit weary about approaching this tag. I'm excited but weary because I've read a lot of books this year so far, like more books than I read in all of last year, because last year I spent half of the year in college, so I really only spent the second half of the year reading as much as I wanted to, and this year I've been able to read as much as I want to. So as of today, which is the 4th of July, I've read 123 books, which is a lot to sift through to answer these questions, but I will do my very best. First question is the best book you've read this year so far. I really doubt that I'm going to be able to pick just one book, so let me think. For sure my favorite memoir was Hunger by Roxane Gay, which I will probably never stop talking about. But I also read Born to Run by Bruce Springsteen, which was also amazing. So those two are my favorite memoirs. But also Wild! 3 amazing memoirs that I've read this year so far. 3. And that's pretty fantastic, considering I don't really read that many memoirs, so. My favorite young adult books have been When Dimple Met Rishi by Sandhya Menon, The Sun Is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon, and The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. Those are definitely my top 3 YA novels so far this year. I'm sorry I can't just pick one, but I mean, I've read 123 books. How can you pick one? It's ridiculous. My favorite book of poetry has been Hard Child by Natalie Shapiro, but I also loved Nejma by Naira Waheed. So I have 2 favorite poetry books, and my favorite short story collections have been 99 Stories of God by Joy Williams and The Paper Menagerie by Ken Liu. Oh, also Homesick for Another World by Atessa Moshfegh. So, okay, I'll stop now, but those are all amazing books, and I don't know that I can pick just one out of those. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. I gave you like, I think 9 or 10 books? I don't know. But they were all fantastic, so I can't pick. The next question is best sequel you've read so far this year, and considering I've read so many books, I've read very few sequels. I don't read a lot of series. I've only read 2, and they're both YA contemporaries. I read Isla and the Happily Ever After, which I accidentally read out of order. I didn't realize that it was the 3rd one when I read it, so I actually read Anna and then Isla. I missed the whole middle one. So I'm gonna go back and read it, but I don't think I lost that much by doing that. And P.S. I Still Love You by Jenny Han. Both of them were kinda like I didn't love either of them, so I don't really have a best sequel this year, but those are the 2 sequels I read. A new release that you want to read but haven't read yet. Well, I have Always and Forever Lara Jean, which I'm excited to read. I tend to just like read the new releases that I'm excited for right away. The 4th question is most anticipated release for the second half of the year. I don't know that I necessarily have a most anticipated release. I think that mostly I wait for books to come out and then read reviews and see what other people say, or I just dive right in. So I don't have a good answer to this. In fact, I cannot think of a single book that I'm anticipating coming out this year. Question number 5 is biggest disappointment. Honestly, I have a few disappointments this year. I really wanted to like P.S. I Still Like You by Jenny Han a lot more, and I didn't. The Female of the Species by Mindy McGinnis was talked up a lot here on BookTube, and I barely ended up liking it. Barely. I was really excited for Jessica Valenti's memoir, Sex Object, and I ended up just thinking it was boring, uninteresting. I didn't like it, and I was excited for it, so it was disappointing for sure. Also, The Smell of Other People's Houses by Bonnie Sue Hitchcock. That was also talked about a little bit on BookTube, and I think more people are picking it up now because it came out paperback, and it's pretty short, but I also didn't like that. There was something about the structure of the story that really didn't fulfill me. I also read Swing Time by Zadie Smith that a lot of people were really excited for, and it's the second Zadie Smith book that I've read, and I didn't like the first one, but people were so excited about Swing Time that I was like, you know what, I'll dive in. The first one was White Teeth I didn't like it. I also didn't like Swing Time. I understand why people like it, it's just really not for me, and I feel kind of guilty for not liking it because so many people just rave about how amazing it is. Yeah, Zadie Smith, I think that she's just not an author for me. My last disappointment is more of a category, a whole author. I access audiobooks through services online through my library, and one of the services, Hoopla Digital, has a bunch of Casey West novels. And I rented a bunch of them because I was like, oh, everybody loves Casey West. So I used a bunch of my like allotted borrows per month to rent Casey West audiobooks, and I ended up not liking any of them. Not a single one. And I had read By Your Side, the one that takes place in the library. I had the hard copy of that and I didn't like it, so the audiobooks were more me giving her a second chance, and I dived in too deep and ended up listening to I think 2 or 3 Casey West novels, and I did not like any of them. So I think I'll skip Casey West from now on. They were all like 2-star reads for me, which is really low. I only give books 1 star if there's something in it that I actively hated. Number 6 is Biggest Surprise, and I don't have one book that I'm going to talk about here. My biggest surprise is how much I am loving memoirs this year. I have never been a huge memoir person, but as I talked about earlier in this video, there have been a lot of memoirs that are like shooting up to the very top of my favorite books of all time list. I just am really loving some really good memoirs lately, and I'm really happy about that. So I'm surprised that I'm loving memoirs so much. And I'm also kind of surprised that I'm not liking short stories as much as I usually do. I have a bunch of short story collections stacked up on my shelf that I've been meaning to get to, and it's just been really hard to motivate myself to actually read them. So I'm surprised that I'm loving memoirs, and I'm surprised that I'm not loving short stories. Number 8 is Newest Fictional Crust. Newest Fictional Crust. Next is Newest Fictional Crush, and I'm just gonna like stop this right there. I don't get fictional crushes. I completely understand people who do, and I think that it's a-okay, and you do you, and I'm highly supportive of fictional crushes, but I just straight up don't have any. Like when I'm reading stories, it never occurs to me what I personally would think of that person in real life. It barely ever occurs to me. And I mean, I read a lot of YA novels and the main characters are like 16 years old and I'm 23, so that would be a little bit icky. So, but no fictional crushes pretty much ever for me. Number 9 is Newest Favorite Character, and I'm gonna have to think about this one. Whew. I'm just gonna go through my Goodreads and tell you what the characters that I liked. I love Dimple in When Dimple Met Rishi. I liked Lily, the dog, in Lily and the Octopus by Stephen Rowley. Oh, Wade in History Is All You Left Me. Wade does not get enough love on BookTube. Both of the leads in The Sun Is Also a Star are amazing. Okay, I think that's all I got for you for favorite characters. Honestly, if there's a character that I find really annoying, I notice, or if there's a character who's absolutely detestable, I notice. But for the most part, I do not spend my reading time like judging characters or categorizing them as people I like or don't like. And so that makes these questions a little bit more difficult for me. Oh, a book that made you cry. The next question is a book that made you cry. Let me look. There have been plenty. I'm an easy crier. The book I'm listening to now, Tiny Beautiful Things by Cheryl Strayed. I went to see my mom and I listened to an audiobook for the hour-and-a-half drive, and I just cried. Every answer that Cheryl Strayed writes is just too exactly true for me to handle. They just hit me right in the soul, honestly. So Tiny Beautiful Things by Cheryl Strayed, that one's making me cry just over and over. The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas, that one made me cry. Oh, this is embarrassing, but Soppy by Philippa Rice, which is a collection of her webcomics about her relationship with her boyfriend, maybe husband. That made me cry because it hit me right in the heart. It's too cute. Oh, I read on January 16th A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness, and that is just a huge tearjerker. I read that the day after my stepdad got diagnosed with cancer for the second time, and so it was especially tearjerky. A book that made you happy. There are so many. Even books that are like not fluffy still make me happy. Like, a book doesn't have to have happy content to make me like a happy reader. So I'm not going to go through and answer this. Many of my books made me happy. Very consistently the YA, and very consistently the memoirs. Number 12 is favorite book to movie adaptation you saw this year. I don't think I saw any. I have not been to the movies in a very long time. No book to movies. I did watch Big Little Lies, of course, which was amazing, but that's book to TV. Can we just talk about how Reese Witherspoon is the absolute queen of book to screen adaptations recently? Pay attention now. Reese Witherspoon is in so many amazing book to screen adaptations, and there's even more coming out. So Reese Witherspoon is someone to keep your eye on. If she starts to work on a project that's based on a book, you should read that book because it's going to be made and it's going to be awesome. Number 13, favorite review you've written this year. Every review that I've ever written has been this year. I've dived really hard into projects when I get into them, and so when I started writing reviews, I went pretty hard. I was almost caught up a couple weeks ago, but then I fell behind again. So I've written like 70 reviews this year. I'm not going to pick one because that would be ridiculous and it would take too long. All of my reviews are in a website that's like a blogger. It's always linked down below. It's maryclairereads.com. Number 14 is the most beautiful book you've bought this year. And all of my most beautiful books that I've bought this year are definitely poetry collections. So I have 4 here to show you. And I haven't read any of these. First is A Thousand Mornings by Mary Oliver. It's got this beautiful like black and white forest with fog. There's some water on the bottom. It's really gorgeous. This is a gorgeous cover. I love this cover. This is The Captain's Verses by Pablo Neruda, and I'm very excited to read this. I just think that it's like so like sleek and beautiful, and I love the pop of color. This one is Cold Pastoral by Rebecca Dunham, and it's got just like the most beautiful blue color with the slice of orange, and it's a photo. It's a gorgeous photo of water. And finally, The After Party by Jana Prickrill. This is also a beautiful cover. It's so like colorful, and it's got like the paint marks. It's kind of bold, but also vaguely earthy. Like it looks almost like a landscape, and it might be, but when you look close, you can see like all the brush strokes and everything. So this is also a gorgeous collection. So I think that all of my most beautiful books that I've bought this year have been poetry collections. Number 16 is what books do you need to read by the end of the year? And here's the thing. I have the books on my shelf, but the books that I read as audiobook, it's not completely up to me what I can listen to as an audiobook. It's also dependent on what's available through my library, and so I'm going to exclude audiobooks from all of this because I have very little control over what audiobooks actually become available to me. The actual books that I want to read this year, I definitely want to read Captain's Verses, and I definitely want to read Always and Forever Lara Jean by Jenny Han, and The Upside of Unrequited by Becky Albertalli. But generally I try to keep a pretty small TBR shelf because I go through books pretty quickly, and my reading mood can change from month to month, and so if I have too many that I'm excited about, I will just get overwhelmed. And so I don't have that many that I definitely have to read by the end of the year. Okay, that was my mid-year book freakout tag. Thank you again, Amy, for tagging me. This was pretty fun to film. I definitely cheated a bunch of times by not really answering the questions or narrowing it down completely, but honestly, I did my best. So be it. So if you have any comments about any of the books that I read, or if you have any recommendations that you're like, oh, you have to read this, especially apparently if it's a memoir, I'm really into memoirs lately, please let me know down below. I would love to hear your recommendations. And if you've read any of the books that I mentioned and you like them or didn't like them or have a video about them, please let me know. I will watch and see what you think. Thanks for watching. Bye!